We are now ready to announce the new Justice Democratic candidate for the California Senate seat, the one very temporarily occupied by Dianne Feinstein. She's been in office for nearly half a century through all of her political career, but soon she will be sent to retirement by the person you're about to meet. Without further ado, let me introduce to you Alison Hartson, former national director of Wolf-PAC and new Senate candidate and future senator from California. Alison, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thank you, Cenk. So happy to be here.
All right, great to have you. I feel like I should play this.
Yes.
Alison, will you be running as a Justice Democrat?
You bet I will. Yep.
All right, excellent. And will you be our champion?
I will be your champion.
All right, yes. Excellent. Now, Alison, you ran an organization whose sole mission is to get money out of politics. But before that, you were a teacher. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I'm going to ask you about that. But first, most important question, why are you running for this seat?
California really needs a bold progressive to lead the way. And this particular race in 2018 is going to be one of the most, if not the most important race in 2018 in the country. And that's because California is the 6th largest economy in the world. It's because a lot of what we do does in fact influence the country. There's a saying that goes, as California goes, so too does the country. When I first heard that, I thought, yeah, okay, I'm sure every state says that. But then I started traveling around the country with Wolf-PAC, and I talked to state legislators and I talked to voters on the ground, knocking on doors, talking about the corrupting influence of money in our political system. And several legislators and voters in different states would ask me if California had done this yet. And it wasn't just because, or it wasn't because at all that I lived in California, they didn't know that yet. They would ask me and then I would tell them, well, I happen to be from California and we did in fact pass our resolution in California. And then that would cause them to pause and say, okay, and really consider what it is that their state should be doing too. So it is vitally important who we have at the helm of California. This Senate race is important that we have a progressive in there, not just for the state of California, but for the country, and quite frankly, for the DNC. We've got to get these corporate Democrats out.
All right, now let me tell you another fun part of this dramatic announcement. I will be Alison's campaign advisor.
I love that smile.
So we're coming at 100 miles an hour. This will not be a normal campaign. And I'll tell you why I'm animated by it. And Alison, I share your sentiment about how important this race is. And that's why we spent so much time trying to figure out who the right candidate was. And as you meet Alison, I think you'll see that she's the perfect candidate for this. She's worked for the last 5 years on the issue that people in California and progressives care the most about. And she has a great background, as you guys are gonna see in a second. But when you find out how conservative Dianne Feinstein is, it is unconscionable that she's our senator in California. She is against Medicare for all. She's against college for all. She says it's impractical to give your kids free tuition and a shot at the American dream. She voted for the Iraq war. She voted for Bush's tax cuts. She's for the death penalty. She's for the Patriot Act. She has never done anything on money in politics. She's against marijuana legalization. She supports TPP. And she's of course also for warrantless wiretapping. She has got to go. Now, Alison, you say you're a true progressive, but obviously people are gonna wanna know about that. And so what are the issues that you care about most?
Well, you know, it's really difficult to divorce or separate one issue from another. They're all connected, they all affect each other. The intersectionality of every issue that affects our everyday lives is important for us to understand. And so education affects prison, and healthcare and the economy affect one another. And so we have to fight for all of these things, and we have to do it at the same time. But the one thing that is connected to every single one of those issues is the corrupting influence of money in our political system. And that is why I have spent the last 5 years of my life fighting to get a 28th Amendment to the US Constitution that will overturn Citizens United and every other Supreme Court case that has gotten our country into this mess. We have to do that. And while we're doing that, we also have to make sure that we have Medicare for all throughout the country, that we have a $15 minimum wage that is tied to inflation. Every human being deserves to make a living wage. And we need to make sure that students who earn their way into college can afford it. We need free tuition for college. We need to deprivatize our public education system. We need to deprivatize our private prisons and our detention centers. The list goes on. They all feed on one another. And so we need people in Congress who are going to understand that all of these issues have to be moving forward at the same time.
Now, Dianne Feinstein is going to raise a lot of money for this race, as she always does. And she has taken, is it tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in legalized bribes?
It's definitely up there. It's got to be hundreds of millions of dollars. But she's definitely, she's taken millions of dollars from Big Pharma. She's taken millions of dollars from corporations. She's taken millions of dollars from defense contractors. And these influence her decisions. And it's no surprise, right? Dianne Feinstein is worth an estimated $80 million.
So if she's worth $80 million and she's fighting like hell to get money out of politics, bless her heart. But she's had 25 years in the Senate to do something about money in politics, has she?
No, she hasn't, and that's just exactly it, right? So I'll give you one example. Bernie Sanders introduced an amendment or a resolution in Congress in 2015 that would help to get a constitutional amendment to the US Constitution to overturn Citizens United related cases, as I was speaking to earlier. Not a single co-sponsor on that. That means Dianne Feinstein did not co-sponsor and support Bernie Sanders' amendment to the US Constitution to address the #1 issue that polls show is in the 90th percentile in the country of people wanting to get this done. That cuts across party lines.
So sometimes people will say, well, how's Bernie ever going to get anything done? And how are you going to get anything done if you're a progressive in Congress? Well, but he can't get anything done because his colleagues are people like Senator Feinstein, who are deeply conservative and bathed in the big money. Now look, guys, if you want progressives to win, whether it's any progressive in the country, not associated with just Democrats, not associated with Young Turks or anything else, bless your heart, you gotta give the small donations so they could overcome it. Here, good examples, Beto O'Rourke. Has nothing to do with anything that I run. I interviewed him the other day. He doesn't take any PAC money. And I wish he'd join us at Just Democrats. He hasn't yet, but you should support him. He's running against Ted Cruz. And we need to defeat Ted Cruz, and the only way you can do it is with small donors. Same thing with Alison. If you don't give at jdems.us/Alison, well then you can't say, hey, we tried, or I did my part. By the way, if you want to volunteer, great, volunteer.
Please,
yes,
please
that would be great.
yes.
Alison led an army of over 1,000 volunteers in the state of California to pass the Wolf-PAC resolution. So for people who don't know, what is Wolf-PAC? What was the resolution in California and what happened there?
Wolf-PAC is a political organization that is solely working on the issue of money in politics, and specifically to get that 28th Amendment to the US Constitution. And so we are working state by state to pass our resolutions to make sure that we can get that amendment. And in California, it was AJR1. We passed it in 2014. And Mike Gatto, Representative Mike Gatto, or former representative who was the sponsor of that, he, along with, I believe it was Wachowski was the representative or the senator, they had actually introduced it beforehand. They had actually decided on that before Wolf-PAC came in to help them. They were ahead of the curve in that way. So we do have really good people in government who want to get this done, but they were stopped because they didn't have the right amount of pressure and organization that they needed from the community. So that's where Wolf-PAC came in. We came in 2013, and I started organizing a force to be reckoned with. And we figured it out every step of the way, and we eventually got it passed with their help and working together to make that happen.
Where did you come from? Right, I know, but I want the audience to know. How'd you get involved in Wolf-PAC? You were a lobbyist before, you were a politician before, what were you?
I taught high school. I taught English, and then I also taught an intervention program for students who are at risk of not graduating high school. And it was through teaching high school and the number of the impact that so many policies had on the working class community that I taught in, and on my own family through the decisions around immigration and healthcare and minimum wage and whether or not my students could afford to go to college, so that should they bother really working so hard in high school. I mean, the one thing after another, I saw how these policies were affecting real everyday lives. And I finally saw that it really came down to the influence of money in our political system. And that's when I decided to get involved in the movement. And it was through that I found Wolf-PAC through doing a Google search online.
What do I tell people? Just Google it.
It's worth the Google.
Yes. And I'm going to keep on saying it. JDems, as in Just Democrats, jdems.us/Alison. We'll have the link below in the description box if you're watching this later and not live. And so you Google it, and okay, but there's a million groups working on this. One of them is not Dianne Feinstein, but
shocker.
Why did you choose Wolf-PAC? Did you watch the Young Turks or something?
No, I actually had no idea who you were, Cenk.
Okay,
sorry.
Bless your heart. Okay.
But, no, I didn't know who the Young Turks were. I didn't know who Cenk was, and so, but I read the plan. I read Wolf-PAC's plan online, and it was not only the most logical plan, but it was the most aggressive one. And I understand, and I know that the people of this country and the state of California in particular understand that this issue of our democracy being corroded by the wealthy elite who are incapable of understanding, not necessarily bad people, but just incapable of understanding the issues that we deal with, is systemic, and it's urgent. It is fiercely urgent. We've got to do everything we can right now, and that's why I made the difficult decision to leave teaching to do this full time.
By the way, wolf-pac.com if you want to help that cause. If you want to help Just Democrats overall, justdemocrats.com/win. Okay, now look, I agree with you that the California race is monumentally important, because if progressives win in California, and by the way, why doesn't California have a progressive senator? Our senior senator should be incredibly progressive. Fox News should be complaining about the senator from California every day, but they almost never do. We have an incredibly conservative senator. So, Alison, just a final thought here. So Feinstein, everybody says no, she's been in politics for half a century. She has all of the establishment locked up. She has almost all the endorsements. She's going to go to the defense contractors and the healthcare companies and raise all that money. So you can't win. So what's your answer to that?
That's the reason I will win, because people are done with that. We're done. And so as long as we get out there and we vote and help me to get the word out, and let's do this together. This isn't about me, this is about us. All of us have got to come together and show up every single day to make up for the money that she's gonna raise. And that's what we're gonna do.
Okay, so no PACs.
No PACs, no corporate money.
All right, then it's on you guys. If you want a progressive senator, you gotta make it happen. And if you do it in California, then it opens the door to every other race. Every media person in the country always says, oh, well, progressives never win. And if progressives win in California, that will shock the world and then get them to go, hey, maybe all the other progressive candidates can win. If the so-called mighty Feinstein falls, then anything is possible. That opens up all the other 2018 races, especially we got her on the ropes, let alone 2020, which is going to be monumentally important. This is your one shot at the Death Star. So let's go get him. And my role as campaign advisor will be voluntary. It'll be informal, and I'm acting as a person here, not as the guy who runs the company or anything along those lines. Obviously, on this show, we care about the issues. We're not like the rest of the media. Well, I'm neutral. I don't know. Maybe people on death row who are innocent, maybe they should get executed anyway. No, they shouldn't get executed. 150 people were on death row who we later found out were innocent. I don't want a senator who's for the death penalty. I don't want a senator who's never going to try to get money out of politics or Medicare for all. So yes, I, Cenk Uygur, care. Yes, I would love to be your campaign advisor. And yes, we are going to defeat her.
We are.
All right, you're gonna go get it?
We're gonna go get it. Let's do it.
I love it. jdems.us/Alison. Let's go make it happen. If you like this video, you'll love the whole TYT network. Check it out at tytnetwork.com/join.